There was once a person who carried a heavy stone everywhere they went. Every morning, they would wake up and place that stone on their shoulders. They carried it through their work, through their conversations, through their dreams, and even into their moments of silence. People would ask, "Why do you keep carrying something that causes you so much pain?" And the person would answer, "Because this stone has been with me for so long. Because I remember the day I found it. Because I am afraid of who I will become without it." But one day, a wise teacher looked at them and said, "Tell me, are you carrying this stone because it still has a purpose, or are you carrying it because you have forgotten how to put it down?" Many people live the same way. They carry old wounds. They carry old relationships. They carry guilt from mistakes they have already paid for. They carry dreams that have already ended. They carry versions of themselves that no longer exist. And deep inside, they wonder why they feel exhausted. But sometimes the weight you are feeling is not because life is too difficult. Sometimes it is because you are holding on to something that was never meant to continue with you. There are moments when God closes a door, removes a person, changes a direction, or takes something away from your path. And in those moments, the human mind often fights back. We try to understand. We try to control. We try to bring back what has already left. But wisdom teaches us something different. A river does not cry when it reaches a fallen tree. It does not stop flowing because the path has changed. It finds another way. A tree does not fight when its leaves fall in autumn. It understands that release is part of preparation for a new season. So why do we struggle so much to release what God has already asked us to surrender? Maybe because we confuse attachment with love. Maybe because we confuse familiarity with purpose. Maybe because we believe losing something means losing ourselves. But sometimes the greatest act of faith is not holding tighter. It is opening your hands. Because what leaves your life is not always something being taken away from you. Sometimes it is something being removed from you so that you can finally grow. Today, the question is not, what did I lose? The deeper question is, what am I still carrying that I was already told to release? Because the next chapter of your life cannot begin while you are still protecting the pages of the last one. There was a man who planted a seed in his garden every year. He would water it. He would protect it. He would sit beside it and wait for it to grow. But one year, the seed did not become a tree. Days passed, weeks passed, months passed, still nothing. Yet every morning, the man continued watering the empty ground because he remembered the hope he felt when he first planted it. One day, an old gardener walked by and asked him, "Why do you continue giving your energy to something that has already completed its purpose?" The man replied, "Because I invested so much into it, because I believed it would become something great, because I cannot accept that it is over." The old gardener looked at him and said, "Your problem is not that the seed did not grow. Your problem is that you are refusing to see that a new season has arrived." Many people are doing the same thing with their lives. They are watering dead seeds. They are giving their attention to things that no longer have life. They are holding conversations that ended years ago. They are chasing approval from people who have already chosen to walk away. They are carrying shame from mistakes that were meant to teach them. not destroy them. And every day they wonder why they feel tired. But the weight does not always come from the challenges ahead. Sometimes the weight comes from refusing to put down what belongs behind you. A monk once said that a person can drown in a river that is only a few inches deep if they refuse to let go of what they are carrying. The river itself is not the problem. The burden is. This is the lesson of release. There are things that were part of your journey, but were never meant to be part of your destination. A chapter can be beautiful and still need to end. A person can be important and still not belong in your future. A dream can be meaningful and still need to be transformed into something new. The mistake many people make is believing that if they let go, they are admitting defeat. But letting go is not surrendering to weakness. It is surrendering to wisdom. A tree does not hold on to its leaves because it is afraid of becoming empty. It releases them because it trusts the process of renewal. The tree understands something that humans often forget. An empty space is not always a loss. Sometimes an empty space is an invitation. The same thing happens in life. When something leaves, we immediately ask, why was this taken from me? But perhaps a better question is, what is this making room for? Maybe the closed door is protecting you from a room you were never meant to stay in. Maybe the ending is preparing you for a beginning you cannot yet see. Maybe the thing you are begging God to return is the very thing God is asking you to release. Growth requires space. Peace requires space. Transformation requires space. You cannot receive what is new while your hands are still tightly holding what is old. So today, look honestly at your life. Ask yourself, what am I holding because it is valuable? And what am I holding only because I am afraid to let go? Because sometimes the greatest act of courage is not fighting for something. Sometimes the greatest act of courage is having the wisdom to walk away. Release what has completed its lesson. Release what has completed its season. Release what God has already asked you to surrender. Because the moment you stop carrying what was never meant to stay, you finally become free to carry what was always meant for you. There was a young man who stood at the edge of a mountain path. Behind him was the road he had already traveled. The familiar road, the one he knew every stone and every turn of. Ahead of him was a path covered in mist. He could not see where it led. He could not see what waited beyond the fog. And because he could not see the destination, he was afraid to take the next step. An old teacher walking beside him asked, "Why do you refuse to move forward?" The young man answered, "Because I do not know what is waiting for me ahead." The teacher smiled and said, "Tell me, when you planted a seed in the ground, did you dig it up every day to check if it was growing?" The young man said, "No." The teacher asked, "Why?" He replied, "Because I trusted the process." The teacher looked toward the mountain path and said, "Then why do you trust the seed more than you trust the path prepared for you?" Many people want a new chapter, but they do not want to release the old one. They ask for change, but they resist the process that creates change. They pray for peace, but they continue holding on to the things that steal their peace. They ask for direction, but when the path changes, they fight against it. The human mind often believes that control creates safety. We think if we can hold tightly enough, we can prevent loss. If we can predict everything, we can avoid pain. If we can keep everything the same, we can stay comfortable. But life does not work that way. A river that refuses to flow becomes stagnant. A person who refuses to adapt becomes trapped. And a heart that refuses to surrender becomes heavy. Surrender does not mean giving up. It does not mean becoming passive. It does not mean that you stop working, stop dreaming, or stop trying. Surrender means accepting that there are things greater than your understanding. It means having the discipline to do your part while trusting that the outcome is not entirely in your hands. A wise person plants the seed, waters the ground, and takes care of the garden. But they do not stand there every night demanding the flower to bloom faster. They understand timing, they understand seasons. They understand that growth happens beneath the surface before it becomes visible. Sometimes God removes something from your life because you are attached to something smaller than what is waiting for you. But because you only see the present moment, you call it a loss. You do not see the protection. You do not see the preparation. You do not see the redirection. A child may cry when a parent takes away something dangerous from their hands. The child sees only what was removed. The parent sees what was being prevented. In the same way, there are moments when we do not understand why something ended. But lack of understanding does not mean lack of purpose. The lesson is to stop asking, why is this happening to me? And begin asking, what is this teaching me? What strength is this building inside me? What new direction is this creating? Because the person who learns surrender discovers a different kind of strength. They no longer need to force every door open. They no longer need to chase every person who walks away. They no longer need to panic when life changes direction. They learn to stand still within themselves. They learn to trust. They learn that sometimes the path becoming unclear is not a sign that they are lost. It is a sign that they are being guided beyond what they could have imagined. So release your need to control everything. Resil the fear of what you cannot see. Trust the process. Trust the timing. Trust that what is leaving may be creating space for something greater. Because sometimes the greatest blessings do not arrive when you hold on tighter. They arrive when you finally open your hands. There was a sculptor who found a large piece of stone on the side of a mountain. To everyone else, it looked ordinary. It was heavy, it was rough, it had no shape, it had no beauty. People walked past it without noticing. But the sculptor looked at the stone differently. A young apprentice asked him, "Master, why did you choose this stone? It looks like nothing special." The sculptor smiled and answered, "I do not see what it is now. I see what it can become." The apprentice watched as the sculptor began to remove pieces of stone. Day after day, strike after strike. The stone lost parts of itself. The apprentice became worried. "Why are you destroying it?" he asked. The sculptor replied, "I am not destroying it. I am removing everything that was never meant to remain." Many people misunderstand transformation. They think becoming a better version of themselves means only adding more. More knowledge, more success, more possessions, more recognition. But sometimes growth is not about adding. Sometimes growth is about removing fear, removing old habits, removing limiting beliefs, removing attachments that keep you from becoming who you were created to be. The same thing happens in life. There are seasons when God begins shaping you, and shaping is not always comfortable. Sometimes the process feels like loss. You lose people you thought would stay. You lose opportunities you thought were meant for you. You lose old identities that once made you feel safe. And in those moments, you may wonder, why is everything being taken away? But perhaps the question should be, what is being revealed? Because a diamond does not become valuable by adding more material. It becomes valuable through pressure, through cutting, through removing what hides its true nature. You are also being shaped. Every challenge, every ending, every moment of uncertainty, every time you had to stand alone. These moments are not simply breaking you. They are refining you. They are teaching you patience. They are teaching you discipline. They are teaching you that your strength was never dependent on what you had. Your strength was always inside you. The person you are becoming requires the release of the person you once were. You cannot step into a new season while constantly asking the old season to return. You cannot become peaceful while holding on to resentment. You cannot become strong while depending on things that make you weak. You cannot discover your purpose while being controlled by your fears. A seed must break before it becomes a tree. A butterfly must leave the safety of its cocoon before it can fly. And a person must sometimes release what is comfortable before they can experience what is possible. This is why letting go is not an ending. It is a transformation. It is the moment when you say, I trust that what is leaving is making space for what is coming. I trust that every closed door is guiding me toward the right one. I trust that my journey is still being written, because the greatest version of yourself is not created by holding on to everything. It is created by having the courage to release what no longer belongs. So stop asking, why did I lose this? Start asking, what is this loss teaching me? Stop asking, why did this person leave? Start asking, who am I becoming because they did? Stop asking, why did this chapter end? Start asking, what new chapter is waiting for me? The stone became a masterpiece because the sculptor had the courage to remove what did not belong. Your life is being shaped in the same way. Trust the process. Trust the lessons. Trust the journey, because one day you will look back and realize the things you begged God to keep were the very things that were preventing you from becoming who you were always meant to be.